Hi, this is Trevor Klee, just at Tutor, talking again about how to build your own tutoring business. This is lesson 2 on finding a niche. So, let's start with this. First of all, I want to show you something. So these are my prices for tutoring versus average prices for tutoring. So as you see on the left, here's an annotated screenshot of my, tutoring website. I charge $160 per hour for the GMAT, and I charge $100 per hour for the LSAT and the GRE. I also do consulting rates, but to be honest, no one really goes for those. Now, on the right here, I have a screenshot that I got from a website, which has just like a directory of tutors. And it shows that the average cost for a math tutor ranges from $25 to $80 an hour. It's a big difference, right? People will happily pay me $160 an hour for GMAT tutoring. And at the same time, there are a lot of math tutors who are only making $25 an hour. They have to go and travel to their clients and provide resources and all this other stuff. So, what gives? Well, a couple things. First of all, the exams I teach are hard, even for smart people. So, if you think about, just like a math tutor, just, algebra, or for, even when kids are first starting to do, I don't know, basic arithmetic and whatever. No one really thinks of that as like hard, especially not if you're like an educated, white collar professional. You're not going to think like, oh, I need someone really smart to help teach my kid algebra. So, you figure there's a lot more people who are able to teach that, and so you're not willing to pay so much. Okay, second, uh, good scores on these exams lead directly to higher income. So, the GMAT, exam for business school. If you get a good score on the GMAT, you can go to a good business school. 2 years at, say, Harvard, your first job out of there, you're making well over $100,000 a year. It is worth it to get good grades on these exams. Same thing with the LSAT. If you get into Harvard Law, you can be pretty much guaranteed, a job making, a lot of money. Same thing with the GRE. You get into the graduate school you want, it's a lot of money. And people think about these exams in these ways. They think about them not in terms of, oh, I really want to learn how to do the GMAT. They think of it instead as like, this is my key. This is what's preventing me from getting a job that will be, enjoyable and make me a lot of money. So they do that sort of cost benefit analysis for themselves. I don't do that for them. They think about that. Meanwhile, just a math tutor would not, be doing that. You can't really do that sort of cost benefit analysis like, oh, if my son doesn't get an A in math, then I don't know, I guess he's not going to like get an A in math. I guess I'll be a little disappointed. So, that's another difference. Last, because these exams are, big barriers to your future. This GMAT, if you get GMAT is what's preventing you from taking the next step in your career. LSAT's what preventing you from taking the next step in your career. People want to pay a lot. And I know that sounds like probably a little crazy, but I can tell you something. I get more clients now that I charge this much than I did when I was charging like $90 an hour. Because people, first of all, see price as a sign of quality. They want to go with the best GMAT tutor, so they want to go with one who charges a lot. Second of all, like it's like taking your girlfriend out to a really nice dinner. You do want to take her out to a dinner that tastes really good, but you also want to take her out to an expensive one. It's a special occasion. So you wouldn't really like your girlfriend wouldn't really want to go to a restaurant that's like, $5 per plate, $10 per plate if it's your anniversary. You want to pay a lot for your anniversary. In the same way, you want to pay a lot for, tutoring for such an important exam. So, what does that mean for you? Well, for you, that means a couple things. When you're finding a niche, first of all, you do want to be in a niche that's recognized. Tutoring is not something where you're going to reinvent the wheel and end up in some niche that no one's ever heard of before. So, for instance, I had someone ask me like, "Oh, like I'm really good at history. Can I become a history tutor?" And I told him maybe. I mean, there's not a lot of history tutors, and there's a good reason for that. People enjoy history or they don't enjoy history, and then, they tend to pursue it or not, depending on that. But there's no good, like, reason. Going back to this, history tends not to be that hard unless you're talking about memorizing. There's not that many history exams that will really prevent you from doing, following your dreams. And so, therefore, people won't really want to pay a lot. I said, maybe if you want to do history, see if there's something in like the AP exams. Second of all, specialize, don't generalize. Uh, when you go to the doctor, you want it to be, first of all, you want to go to a doctor. Second of all, you want to go to a doctor probably specific to your complaints. If it's a skin complaint, you want to go to a dermatologist. A gastrointestinal complaint, gastroenterologist. You don't want to go to like Jim's down the street who's a combination doctor, lawyer, mechanic. You don't trust him. In the same way, if you actually really have a problem with like your lungs or something, you won't want to just go to a general practitioner because the general practitioner won't know the specifics. So I know it really seems like, oh, I'm really limiting myself by only teaching, one exam or two exams instead of teaching, the whole range of, math. But you're not. You're specializing, which will make people trust you more. And the last thing is you got to become a subject matter expert. So once you choose something in which there already are people charging a lot, in which you can specialize, you have to know the test, you have to know the resources around the test, you have to know techniques for the test, you have to know everything around it. So this can really pay off. So I teach some very hard graduate exams, but you don't have to do that. For instance, here's an interesting thing I found. I saw a link on Reddit for a woman in New York City who tutors this kindergarten exam. People pay her $125 an hour to teach kindergartners, 4 or 5 year olds, how to like do the, whatever the puzzles and whatnot that make up the exam for kindergarten. Now, not everyone can do that, especially because New York City is a pretty special market, but it's worth saying, like, you don't have to be brilliant, you just have to be a specialist, in this case, in a very specific exam. You have to become a subject matter expert, so you have to be able to tell, parents that, like, hey, I can help your kid get into kindergarten. Second of all, you don't reinvent the wheel. So this is pretty small text, but you see like Amanda Uri is the president of Manhattan Private School Advisors, charges $6,000 to help families get their kids into desirable private elementary schools. $6,000. It's a lot of money. There's already a lot of money going around like these getting into elementary school and getting your kids into the right kindergarten. So it makes sense that there'd be a lot of money for tutoring. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about becoming a subject matter expert. Here's just an example that I thought of. So for me, I teach graduate exams. So I don't actually counsel people on their applications. I will, help them out with their essays and personal statements. But I do know exam deadlines. I know the expectations of the schools. I know general tips and tricks, know reputation. Like no one ever really quizzes me on this, but this really does help. Like knowing this for me, knowing this, like, timeline, knowing what to expect, knowing, about the importance of recommendations, whatever, really does help establish me as a subject matter expert. And it's been pretty valuable in terms of making people trust me that I can not only just help them get a good score on the exam, which is important, but really help them get into the school that they want, which is what they're really after. Because, as I said, no one is interested in taking these exams for the fun of it. So, anyways, when you find a niche, uh, you know, pick somewhere that people are already tutoring in, already money is flowing into, specialize, become a subject matter expert, and then once you do, you can charge to reflect that. And in fact, I'd encourage you to charge to reflect that because, once again, think of it in terms of a special dinner. Your girlfriend wants to go out to an expensive dinner for her anniversary. She doesn't want to go to, a cheap restaurant, even if it has the same food. So, this is your first real lesson on starting your own tutoring business, and it would also be your first real step on starting a tutoring business. Find your niche. All right, cool. See you next time.